What goes around comes around. That's common sense. You get what you pay for. It's all going to be basically the same old. Whatever you give will be returned. Being nice will be returned. If you're nice to people, they're nice to you. If you treat them unfairly, they will treat you unfairly. Basically, all of life and all the choices we make are a zero-sum game. It really doesn't matter. Be a little nicer, people will be a little nicer to you. Give a little more, you will be given a little more. Or don't. That's not what Isaiah says. That's only what common sense says. Isaiah says, if you really make a difference, something radically new will happen. So it's not just a little more, a little nicer, a little better, but it is putting your whole existence on the line. That's what happened to Israel. When the land was taken away and they were led into the exile, their lives were gone. And Isaiah comes out with that promise, you will be restored. You will be blessed again. You will be a blessing again. And when people's lives are destroyed like that, homes burnt down, families killed, everything lost, we tend to call that fate. God doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as fate. God isn't a robot where the input determines the output. It's not like you deserve that. Life's events are not determined ahead of time. They happen as we go. But our life is full of consequences. The present is determined as a result of past and present decisions. If you eat more calories than you use, you gain weight. God doesn't do that, you do that. If you spend more money than you make, you go broke. God doesn't do that, you do that. So basically, we are on that treadmill of common sense where our choices determine the outcome, and that really doesn't have anything to do with God all that much. But transformation is possible because God restored God's people from the exile. God gave life back to his people. And here's how transformation happens. If you love God and neighbor, you will be blessed, Isaiah says. And that doesn't make any sense. That's not common sense. Because what he says is, generosity makes you richer. It's not that giving to the poor a little more actually gives you more dollars in your bank account, but raising and lifting your own spirit that way transforms yourself. Or as Isaiah puts it, the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong, and you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Israel lives in the desert, just like us here. And water is a powerful image for a blessing. There's overflowing abundance. God gives God's people an overflowing abundance of time, of purpose, of positive outlook, of money. Blessing is something that can't be stopped. It's overflowing. If you love God and neighbor, you will be blessed that way. Here's what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, if you don't, you're not. It's not a threat. It doesn't say if you are not a good person, you're going to hell. It doesn't say that. The message is, if you are a blessing, you will be blessed. There's not a precondition. You don't have to do that to gain a blessing. But you can increase that. Israel, having lost everything, has a bright new future ahead of itself. They will be restored to their own land, with their own culture, with their own buildings, temples being rebuilt. They're set free. And that's a consequence of God's love. God is faithful, and God does not abandon God's people. Israel gets to begin anew. A new fresh start after that death. Kind of a resurrection theme here. And during that period, in the 6th century before Christ, that's when all those great stories were written. Remember, they were sitting in Babylon, by the rivers of Babylon, and they have that recollection of how great it was back then and how great it could be in the future to come. And they wrote those stories of Moses in Egypt and the Exodus and the Red Sea, where God rescues God's people, because they were hoping for that. And now it's coming through. And they tell those stories of being in the desert, of drought and famine. Desert times are transitional periods. Usually in people's lives, you're not stuck in the desert forever. We think of unemployment like that. We hope that people aren't permanently unemployed, but it's a desert period in their lives where resources are scarce, and they'll get back into a blessed life that allows them to live their want. And when people are down like that, without hope, without their usual lives, the greatest hope they're asking for, and the greatest hope you can give them, is not actually help them. But the greatest hope that you can give them is that hope to be able to help others themselves. People don't want help. People want to be able to help others. That's what makes you feel strong and have a sense of purpose and have a sense of fullness and wealth. You don't have to have everything in the world, but you do need that sense of purpose and that ability to help others, even to the most smallest degree. That sounds all nice, but in our reality, we're all way too busy to think about stuff like that. We come back from the desert all the time. We recoup from exile situations all the time. We start new things all the time. This is a crazy, busy season of new beginnings. New school year, new jobs, new homes, new marriages. I could name countless stories just in this room. And it's all new, and it's all supposed to be a blessing. And most of those transitions that most of you are in right now, they're not more of the same. It's just not just another step in the usual game. They're radically new chapters in your life. The transition from middle school to high school, we talked about that on Tuesday, is scary because that building is so huge and there's so many people, and that's the little one you get picked on all the time. That new job with that computer system that you've never seen before makes you crazy. That's not more of the same. That's being dropped into a new desert again. And that new home family was forced into is way too small for all of them and their animals, and it's a crappy situation. And that new marriage that is supposed to transform your relationship, that one day is supposed to change the rest of your life and keep love alive, good luck with that. You've got to do something for that. And some of us don't even see new beginnings. A friend of the church, he sees endings right now. He was convicted for a minor theft. Could never get a job ever since. Probably never will. There's no hope in that desert situation. He doesn't know where to go with that. So last night, he stood at the tracks of the front runner and decided to, maybe I'll make that one step forward. 2 a.m., one life less. He didn't do it. He was so close. He's in the middle of a freaking desert. And it takes God to get him out of that. Because that's not just a problem one could solve by themselves. But there is hope that even people with such desperation may be transformed. That people with that sense of overflowing abundance are around them and raise their spirits. A guy like that, you can't help with actually helping him. You can't give him things or situations that make him feel better. But if he manages to have people around him with that sense of abundance, that might transform him, like God has transformed many before. Isaiah says you should not be going your own ways, serving your own interests, or pursuing your own affairs. That's a tough call, especially when you're so needy. Don't look for what you want. Interesting word. But we're so busy with all the new beginnings, right? We got so much stuff to do. Martin Luther put it nicely. Work from morning until late at night. In fact, I have so much to do that I shall have to spend the first 3 hours in prayer. That's a radical thing. If you're too busy to do anything, take away 3 hours for prayer. Who has ever prayed 3 hours in a row? I couldn't even imagine that. But that's a radical, transformative experience. Nobody does that. But that mindset of, I may not have an abundance of time, but I'll pretend I have and give some of it to God, that seems to raise his spirit. So with all the new beginnings you're in the middle of, somehow you took this morning and set it aside for this experience right now. To sit in this pew, to come to church, and do whatever you do here. You came here to find something? So all I can do for you is present you with this challenge. How are you willing to allow God to transform you in all the new beginnings you're in the middle of? Good news is, the most important step you've already taken. You're here, and by that you did something very important, and that is, wherever new beginnings are, you mark them by touching base with God. That's why we do baptisms and funerals and weddings, because those crucial moments in life where transformation of life is supposed to happen, touching base with God works. Every Sunday works, because it starts off a new week. A minor transformation maybe, but it's kind of a reset button for your new chapter in your life that next week. And maybe from here on out, for this coming week, Isaiah may become true in his vision for you. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose water never fails. Amen.